All right, I think we are live. Just going to wait a minute or so just to get notifications through. You there, Martyn?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Okay, we've gone live, got the notification. All right, well, an exciting day. Very exciting day. Something we've been working on for a long time. Maybe I'd love you to, I'm sure there's some viewers coming over from your channel, from the Daily Sib, which is great. Great to see all those people over here. I know you've been on our channel a couple of times, but for those that aren't aware of who you are, why don't you tell people who you are, Martyn?
Sure. So everyone, wherever you're tuning in from today, it's great to be on the live stream with the GOAT guys and Arron. So yeah, I'm Martyn. I am a wheelchair user. So since I was about 3, I've had to use a wheelchair due to my disability, which is called spinal muscular atrophy. So on a personal level, I've had to try and overcome the many barriers around the physical environment, people's attitudes, and policies and procedures around government and businesses, as we'll get onto later, and other institutions. But yeah, I've studied economics and marketing. I've worked at a disability charity for 5 years, so a basing in disability rights. And since 2009, I've been blogging. So some might say a digital native influencer if we get into some of the lingo. But basically, it's been about telling my story of what it is to be a guy in now 2020 with a disability, but also built up a community on Disability Horizons with my amazing team there, and co-founded a travel website which we sold to Airbnb. So very much about using marketing, media for inclusion of disabled. Great.
I mean, I think what we should sort of tell people what Purple Goat is. You and I have been speaking for the last, probably 6 to 9 months, but seriously for the last 3 or 4 months planning this.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to you 3 or 4 months ago properly, when you explained to me what was going on in this community and some of the numbers that brands were targeting towards and things like that, when I actually started to see the numbers, I couldn't believe the opportunity. I couldn't believe the issue that there was. Primarily from my side, I see it as a financial opportunity for brands. I think there's a huge benefit to the community as well. But the opportunity we see is that brands are missing a trick here potentially. So maybe just to get into it, we are launching Purple Goat as of today. We've just launched it a few minutes ago. We've been briefing our teams on it for the past couple of weeks and getting them up to speed and everything that's going on. And today's the day. So what is Purple Goat? Purple Goat is a marketing agency in a similar guise to the Goat agency. So it's going to offer similar services to Goat in the sense of content creation, organic influencer, paid influencer, strategy, creative, etc. The big difference is it's targeted at one community, one big undervalued community, and that being the disabled community. So a really, really exciting day. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions on the back of it, but from my side, just very proud to get here. Feel like it's a big opportunity for us to make some changes in the world. What's your thoughts day one after all the work to get here? How are you feeling?
Good. I dug out my only purple T-shirt for the occasion.
I've noticed.
So I'm all prepared.
I should have done the
same. It's phenomenal. I mean, I think, when you look at, so people don't realise that there's 14 million disabled people in the UK. That's, as you say, it's a lot of people that have just not really been seen by brands as a customer base for all sorts of different reasons that Purple Goat is going to help address and find solutions. And the way that transpires in a spending power, and so some people might wonder why it's Purple Goat as well. So purple is the spending power of disabled people. In the UK alone, it's 250 billion pounds a year, and globally, it's 8 trillion. So as you said, Arron, it's for brands. There's an absolute business case around employing disabled talent, around accessible goods and services, and where we're very much at is inclusive marketing, because 0.06% of adverts have disabled people in them versus the 22% of society. So there's a kind of lot of things that have just been ignored, but I think we're at a really nice time in 2020 where we can really make this right for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's the when I understood those numbers, 22% versus 0.06%. I mean, that you don't need to be a marketeer to see the opportunity there. You know, the audience gets advertised to 1/360th of the time that a normal audience gets advertised. So basically, one day a year, brands advertise to that community, and the rest of it, they don't bother. You know, we work with lots of different communities, whether it be, you know, at the GOAT agency, I mean, whether it be gaming or whether it be sport or whether it be parent community or whatever it may be. And it's all different, but none of those communities are underserviced in the way that this is. You know, there's only 600,000 vegans. You know, we've done loads of vegan campaigns. We've done some disability campaigns too, but nowhere near the same extent because brands haven't historically had the appetite for that. So I think when you see that 600,000 vegans versus 14 million in the disabled community, but there's more advertising towards vegans around Greggs and stuff like that than there is trying to bring that community in there. I think that's the real opportunity. It's wide open.
Yeah, I know. I had a train journey a few months back for work up to Manchester and back in the day, and I had various issues with getting on and off the train with my wheelchair that would be very easily fixable with a couple of, you know, focus groups with wheelchair users. And then back to what we're saying about making everyone know that these easy adjustments have been made. But whilst I was on that train journey, every train station had about the vegan burgers for different fast foods. And then when we found out the difference, you and I, of the 600,000 vegan community and the 14 million disabled people community, it was like, what? How can that be?
Yeah, and so, you know, I think it brings us to why. Why is this happening? Because brands want to make money, to be clear. We're an agency that fundamentally delivers business results for our clients. And the main reason I want to do this is because I believe that this will deliver business results. The reason that's very, very close behind is we believe as a part of that, we will also improve the state of the world for potentially 14 million people in the UK, for example. And that's obviously a benefit, but we're not going to brands. We're not going to go to brands and say, oh, people are going to judge you, or people are going to, you know, think you're good if you do this. It's about, there's an audience here that has spending power. How do we get them into your stores? Why aren't you trying to win that community into your premises, into your services, whatever it may be?
Yeah, and that's what disabled people, disabled customers want. You know, that we have a history around the charity model, and you and I have, you know, spoke at length that charity in its own right is great, and there's lots of positive, amazing charity initiatives, but particularly in the disability world, we don't want charity or sympathy or pity, and this word vulnerable that's been bounded around a lot with the coronavirus is, in the context of the virus, yes, there's a vulnerability, but I don't want to be known as the vulnerable guy in society. So yeah, I think, as you say, we're just citizens, voters, customers, and we just want to be treated like that.
Yeah, and customers that spend 250 billion a year, right? That's the reality of it. You know, these are not customers with a massively decreased spending power or anything like that. These are customers just like anyone else. I think what prohibits people is a lack of understanding from the community. You know what I mean? And I have that. I'm not in this community. So, you know, the end of the Purple Goat deck's very clear that, you know, nothing about us without us. Now, that means nothing about a specific community without somebody in that community having a say on that. So it's not me, to be clear. I can't go and advise brands what to do here. It's about getting people that are actually living in that community to be able to say, no, I'm not offended by that. I love that. Rather than someone that isn't trying to think, oh, let's be really careful here. So I think because brands actually don't want to make bad decisions or don't want to hurt people's feelings or don't want to do that, they end up doing nothing. And so those 14 million people, basically, brands don't do anything with them because they're worried about hurting their feelings. And, you know, certainly speaking to you and other people in the community, I haven't heard that at all. I haven't heard anybody go, oh yeah, I don't like when they use that, or when they, like, people are much more concerned about the actions. What are they actually doing?
Yeah, that's it. And I think, you know, when we look at any marketing campaign, there will be a part of a community or a marketplace that won't vibe with it. They won't quite click with it. But that's marketing. You know, the internet, we're all aware of trolls and all the rest of it. Like that, so there are people in the disability community that may take umbrage with it. But the point of Purple Goat is that we're going to speak with the disabled community to find a consensus on solutions and initiatives and things that brands can do that are going to be valuable. As we say, valuable, not vulnerable, is our tagline. And I think that's absolutely the case, that, you know, there's always be that little bit of, but a few people, but that shouldn't spoil the party for everyone, as it seems to have done lately.
Yeah. We were obviously going to do this anyway. We were going to launch this at the end of May, actually, when we were planning on moving into a new office. This group of people, it's actually a slightly different group of people because it's really including the elderly properly, is now being talked about maybe more than at any other time in the last 30 or 40 years. What impacts, both positive and negative, do you think we might see out the back of that?
Yeah, I mean, so I touched briefly before on the word vulnerable and the sort of, we have to be careful that decisions that are made within the very serious context of the coronavirus. And so I think there are things that have been decided by government and by society that are fine with where we are today. But there are things that when the coronavirus has passed, we have to just keep an eye on certain laws that were relaxed around care support, and there's sort of talk about within the healthcare system, would people in that community get access to ventilators and ICU? And so there's a lot around value of life that's been debated within the current context. But I think much more where Purple Goat is, and we're looking way beyond COVID-19 as well, is that I think COVID-19 has shown that people can work at home, and that's very useful for many parts of disabled people. So it could open up jobs in a way that maybe wasn't before. I think, you know, a lot of disabled people have always wanted to get their food delivered, whether it's takeaway or grocery shopping. And we're seeing that the whole world are demanding that more at the moment for obvious reasons. So yeah, I think, and even home education, home leisure. Like I watched the National Theatre streaming with my fiance a couple of weeks ago with James Corden. Now I'm able generally to go in my wheelchair and get to London and do a bit of theatre, but it also can be more tiring and difficult in the winter. So if I could get a bit of my theatre fix in December from home and pay to access that. So I think consumption and culture and consumption is changing in general, but there's definitely a lot of positives for disabled people with this as well.
I certainly see it. I see, you know, changes being made. I agree. I think there's a bit of caution that has to be there as well, particularly when we come out around the carers and things like that. I think, I mean, I've been a really strong proponent of people working in an office, centrally in an office, and this period of time has definitely changed my mind around that. And we will never go back to having everybody in the office every day, never. So I think it's definitely going to create more of an atmosphere, just on a goat point of view, to having more work from home, which then obviously creates more opportunity. If you have in your head everybody has to come into the office every day and someone isn't able to do that, you end up ruling them out for no real reason. Whereas if it was actually a much more flexible working system, and I remember when you and I were talking about this a couple of months ago, we were talking about, so when are you going to come into the office, Martyn? And it was sort of well, when I need to, like when I really like, if I have to go, I'll go, but like I don't want to be doing it for the sake of it. And I get it. I completely understand it. And I think when all workplaces move towards a more work from home, you won't even notice the disability side of things, because it won't be a barrier, the travel to and from the office. I think the world going virtual is certainly a positive. Anybody that has any limit in movement, this is going to, remove some of those barriers for them, hopefully. For all of us, I'm going to commute less, to be clear. It's not, I think everybody is just realizing that we're wasting time on that sort of stuff. So I definitely think that will be a big move. We've got some questions coming in, so let me try and answer some of those on. There's a lot of people talking very positively about it, which is great. Really appreciate that. Joshua Daniels, will the Purple Agency also be able to lobby to improve not just the marketing targeting for disabled people, but also the general accessibility? From my point of view, I think they go hand in hand.
Absolutely, I was going to say the same.
Yeah, I think that's certainly what Martyn and I, the whole valuable, not vulnerable. I think when brands start to treat people in the disabled community as the same from a value point of view as every other consumer, then they will be forced, for their own benefit, for their own profitability, to make themselves accessible. One example Martyn and I were talking about, which we will be talking to our supermarket clients about, I won't name who that is at this point, but 14 million people in the UK. There's 1.2 million people in wheelchairs, Martyn, just over 1 million people. Now, I'm not someone that's in a wheelchair, so I'm taking this secondhand from speaking to Martyn. But obviously, going around a supermarket where everything's on, a certain number of things are on the top shelf, for example, obviously creates a barrier there. Now, what if one of the major supermarkets, whether it was one day a week or whether it was regularly, decided to remove that top shelf? How many of the people in wheelchairs, that 1.2 million people, what percentage of those would change where they shopped at? If they usually shopped at Asda, for example, or Sainsbury's, would they move to Tesco, or the other way around, right? And so that, in our minds, is the way to do it, is to show the brands that if they actually value this community and specifically market to them, that there will be a financial benefit to doing that. The thing to get a supermarket to do this is not to say, oh, you'll get a load of PR and everyone will think you're great. It's to say, you currently have 200,000 of this community shopping with you. If you spend X, we can get 300,000 of that community shopping with you. That is what will make brands make decisions.
Yeah, and I think there's the physical environment. You quite rightly said, Arron, about, if, for example, if there's not a ramp to get in something like a restaurant, I can't go. So with my friends and my family, we won't use that restaurant. We'll go to another restaurant that has got ramp and access. So there's my spending as an individual, but for social things, there's that broader group, 2, 3, 4 people that would come with me along to whether it's a restaurant or a bar or whatever. But I also think when we look at digital, and you and I have talked as well about the segmenting of the disabled community, like there's someone like myself in a wheelchair, there's someone with a visual impairment or deaf and hard of hearing, etc., etc. So if you've got a website, but a blind person can't use the website because of their condition, you're basically turning their customer away as well. And there was a report done, I can't remember off the top of my head the value, but it was called the click away pound, and it was millions of pounds, if not billions, are lost because people can't make the transaction. So there's money in the pocket, but they want to spend it, but they're not able to. And so I think you've got physical spaces, digital spaces, you've got customer service. So they're all parts of a business, and in recruitment and retention as well. It's across the board that there are opportunities. So yeah, I think there's so much there for us to help brands with. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And I think going into that, Martyn, I think it's important to talk about, that segmentation. So the nothing about us without us. Now that doesn't, that certainly doesn't include me, but it doesn't include you on everything either, right? You have an authority to speak certainly about people that have a similar condition to you, and then more generally about people whose condition is maybe similar, but somebody that's blind or is hard of hearing or something else. Like, you're obviously a touch removed, so it's critical that we have people from all of those communities within Purple Go, and that's the team that you're building, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I blogged. I was in Mallorca on an influencer trip and blogged about how it was for me, and someone else with the same condition that I've got went a year later, and there were some difficulties for him that weren't brought up because of the fact that I had have a different need. So I mean, I think that there's a lot around information that is just factually there once someone is looking, when they're booking a holiday or whatever consumer decision they're making, there will be some underlying, okay, has it got what I need for me as an individual? But on the positive, the fact that I was in Mallorca and blogged about it showed it was possible to lots of disabled people. So I think there's those two sides to, I'm able to advocate for my community, and even then individuals have to still check for themselves, and that's just normal. But yeah, we did a project recently for a pharmaceutical company, and we brought in experts and influencers from those other sub communities that you mentioned, because I can't advocate or speak on behalf of those. So yeah, it's a total community effort, and the nothing about us without us comes from disability activism. It's been around decades, and it was from when disabled people were segregated more and weren't as visible in society. So it shows how far we've come, but I think we're at that next frontier now.
It certainly feels like it. And all of these things fall down ultimately because of money. Unfortunately, yeah. that is just the way the world works. And when that's where we are. We're at a scale of financial power that this community has, that they just cannot be ignored. And there'll be brands that really focus on them over the next couple of years, reap huge rewards, and then realize that, they'll never go back from that. The fact that 18 to 30-year-olds, which, as a marketeer, the vast majority of briefs that I get are going to be targeted at that audience. There's less than 10 million of those in the UK. So there's more of the disabled community than there are 18 to 30-year-olds. And the number of campaigns, the billions of pounds that get spent chasing 18 to 30-year-olds is staggering. I'm not saying don't do that. You're doing that because there's a financial return to do that, but there's also a financial return here.
And I think it's good to talk about the brand benefit as well. Like the idea you mentioned the other day, Arron, that there are restaurants that say open for parents for a particular hour of the week, and then they get lots of parents with their kids to come in. You see a little bit of that. You get a sort of autism shopping hour, I think, at Asda, and I know that some theatre shows and cinemas have a kind of learning disability showing. So there's bits and bobs going on, but no one really sings about that and celebrates that to the community, with the community. And in the end, like, the benefits as a brand are that disabled people might go, even not just for that particular hour, but just because they feel seen and welcomed by that brand. But also, like, you look at green and sustainable branding, there are customers that will only buy products because they are socially good. And I think we'll see a lot of that with particularly younger consumers. They're going to say, I'm only going to use your brand if you're inclusive to disabled people, as well as, green and sustainable.
Absolutely. So a couple of questions. First one, I've got one from Ismail Pineda. Is Purple Goat staff mainly going to be integrated by disabled people? Are we mainly going to hire people from the community?
I think there's a double side to the answer. So yes, the absolute idea is that we want talented disabled people to be in the agency and to get a lot of that diversity and disability involved. But on the same point, there won't be tokenism. We need people that are skilled in marketing, media, influencing. So absolutely, we want to get more people from the community, but we also want it to be inclusive, and we want people that aren't disabled to feel just as able to apply and be involved. And inclusion goes both ways as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think that's actually right. We're going to find the best people we can, but if you're in the community, you have an advantage here. That's the key, right? Yeah. So if you've got two people that are the same, one of them's in the community, one of them isn't, 100% we're going to take the person in the community because they've got context and insight, and the whole point is nothing about us without us. So we definitely need people from that community. But Martyn's right. There's I'm going into business with Martyn because Martyn's super competent and an entrepreneur. That's it, right? There's nothing else to do with that. Yes, he's in this community, but there's never been anything other than we're business partners, and that's that. And I think that has to be the basis. If it is equality, it's equality. I don't treat Martyn any differently. Does that mean that I'm going to take his situation into account if he asks for it? Yes, but I'm not going to push that sympathy on him. I think that's the key, certainly from my side. Question from Catherine Dean as well. Tom, if you're listening, if you could throw that one up. The concern I have is that people with underlying health conditions will want to be socially isolating until there is a vaccine, approximately 18 months away. Unless we have the right to refuse to come into work, we will still have employers discriminating. I think I think Catherine's right, and she'll know more about this than I will. I think there will be a change in employer attitudes, both primarily because everybody's working from home. And so, if for example, 3 months ago, somebody at Goat wasn't able to come into work at all, we might have had a problem. Now, if that was the case, and if we come out in 2 months and they can't come in, it's not going to be a problem at all because we're so used to working from home. So I'm hoping these couple of months where everyone's working from home will change employers' attitudes towards people working from home. But there's definitely there is a danger of people being sort of swept under the carpet here if they are stuck at home for 18 months when everyone else goes back to normal. What do you think, Martyn?
Yeah, we touched earlier, didn't we, on there are risks within the current context of Corona that we have to be cautious of as we come out of lockdown and some things go back to whatever normal was before. And I think, when you look at disability rights in the bigger picture, there's lots of parts of the jigsaw. So I was speaking earlier on today to a guy that's a human rights lawyer. And so there is the Equalities Act and the legal side. And of course, there's just the moral, it's the right thing to do. But as you and I keep saying, Arron, that with the brand and the marketing approach, it's where the money is no longer the reason not to do something. And I think, in the case, and I know Catherine well, and hi, Catherine, and thanks for joining us on the live today. It's good to see you here. And I know that those sort of things should be under the Equalities Act. But I think when we start to work more with disabled influencers and we give more of a voice to disabled people across the board, these sort of things won't be got away with. It will be more in the public eye, and that employer would get a lot of bad PR for doing something like that, and their brand would be tarnished. So for me, that's where the brand side comes in again. Yeah,
I agree. Oh, listen, we're going to bang that drum as loud as we possibly can throughout this. I believe the way to get brands to do this is by making it a financial decision, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an ethical layer behind this. Of course there is. And that more people will be impacted by COVID risk, e.g. asthma, not traditional disabilities. Yeah, I think that's certainly, obviously the link from asthma, is obviously is a high risk. But it expands the community, if anything.
Yeah, well, we keep talking, don't we? Like someone mentioned on the call yesterday about whether tinnitus would be included, and there's thousands of individual health conditions that would be regarded as within the disability community. The fact is, if a brand wants to go really specific, fine, we'll work with the experts and influencers in that community. So whatever on the health side it is, we'll be able to work with the right people.
Yeah, it's niche content to niche audiences at scale, isn't it? It's no different to what we do every day. We don't just use the gaming community, for example. So the gaming community draw a similarity to the disabled community. But within the gaming community, you've got the FIFA community, you've got the League of Legends community, you've got Fortnite, you've got all these other games where just because somebody plays one doesn't mean they play another one. And a FIFA fan might hate all the other games, and an F1 fan might only like that one. So at GOAT, we don't just have gaming experts. We have someone, if we're doing a League of Legends campaign, it'll be someone that plays League of Legends. So if we're doing a campaign and it's targeted at the blind community or something even more specific than that, then I think it's absolutely critical that we're represented by somebody that is themselves within that community. Ideally, as a full-time member of staff at Go, work, if not, then freelanced in for that project to ensure that we're utilizing people from that community.
Yeah, and I think some technologies are an important point to touch upon, because obviously the fact that a lot of businesses can all operate from home at the minute is down to internet and various softwares and hardwares and all the rest of it. And I think we've seen a lot of accessibility and empowering technology for disabled people, and that's only going to increase. So I think you were mentioned there was a product that was able to read what was in front of someone who would be blind, for example. So there's this technology that is often made for disabled people, but also like Siri was made for disabled people, and it's now on everyone's iPhone. So it's quite interesting that disabled people are often early adopters of technology that later then goes into the mainstream. And I think that's back to that valuable, not vulnerable narrative that we're trying to get across.
Well, I 100% agree, and it makes sense. Tech really deals with isolation, doesn't it? And so anybody that's isolated because of anything, you're going to have tech to try and help. I mean, that's the big hope now, is that tech's going to move forward in the next, for Catherine's worry about, well, what if we're in lockdown in isolation for the 18 months? My hope is that in 2 or 3 months, people will start releasing some tech products that change how we all communicate and change how we all feel. I've got the Facebook portal. I don't know if anyone, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's it's a completely different level of visual interaction in your home. Like my parents have got one, my brother's got one, my auntie, uncle have got one. We do quizzes on them, and it's in the living room. It follows you around the room. It will zoom in on you wherever you are and stuff like that. So I've got no idea if it had any angle around disability in the creation of it, but it would definitely help, because you're never going to have to worry about screen or audio. It increases the mic. If I'm a meter away or I'm 15 meters away, the audio is exactly the same. It's really, really clever. And so those sorts of improvements, I think, is what's going to happen at a much quicker pace over the next year than the last few years, because we have to. We need innovation right now. So, I'm really hoping that those things will help not just the disabled community, but all of us in staying connected. There's a universal problem that's beyond just the disabled community with regards lockdown. So, there's never been more incentive to go and do this for, companies.
And when you look at, so I've got Amazon Alexa in the bedroom, because when I'm out of my chair, I can't really use my smartphone. So voice has become really empowering for someone like myself. And that's connected to the Hive heating and the lamp. So I can turn lights on and off and do the heating with my voice as well. So there's already stuff going on that's very useful, but I can't think of a marketing campaign where there's a disabled person or disabled people talking about how amazing their Amazon Alexa is for their particular situation, that would only encourage others like them to want to get that or similar kind of technology. So yeah, it's back to, there are things already that brands have done that are good. They just need to be more confident in celebrating how it benefits disabled people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. Are there any more questions from anyone on YouTube or LinkedIn? If you want to comment any of those, we'll try and get to those. So I just want to talk to you personally, Martyn. Big day, obviously. Personally, you're sort of coming into a new entity. It's sort of an end of one phase of life and into another one. When are you painting your house purple? All that sort of stuff. Someone sent you a painted purple goat yet? If not, I'll check it out.
I'll have to get that signed off with my boss, who is Kasha, my fiance, on the paint in the house purple. But yeah, no, it as you say, it is a very landmark moment that where we are, we can really ramp up the impact and inclusion. I mean, as I said at the beginning, on a personal level, every day is a bit more difficult than it probably could be if things were a bit more designed for everybody and included for everybody. And as a community, I work with so many talented people that just are facing other types of barriers as well. And so I think for me, on that mission level, it's amazing to get disabled people's voice heard in a new area with new people and decision makers. But yeah, as someone that studied economics and a master's in marketing, it's a personal dream come true to partner with yourself, Arron, and the GOAT, who I've been obviously watching your vlog, and I've met the guys in the office, a couple of talks I gave last year. And I'm excited to speak with the brands, because I know that everyone at the brand is going to be aware of disabled people, and I know that they're going to want to do something, but I'm interested in what has held them back, and very much just like, let's find solutions. If we start with smaller things and quick wins, let's be pragmatic, but also, if they're bold enough and ready, let's go big and really make this a lasting impact.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I can assure you the honour's ours. We're delighted to be launching this with you. Is a couple more questions. What consumer industry will you be focusing on? That's a question from Archie Sladen. We will be cross-vertical. We'll be across every different industry. What we will be focusing on is the disabled community, the 14 million people in the UK and the larger community around the world. That's what we're focusing on, whether it's with a game, whether it's with a sports club or a supermarket or a fashion company. It doesn't make any difference. The disabled community uses all of these verticals like every other consumer group does. And so, it's about targeting that community specifically. GOAT is already doing the other side of it. So, this drops in for us really well. But it's about really focusing on the community. And if Martyn, if we're sending the first person in a wheelchair to space, or we're doing something with a tampon provider or with a supermarket, it doesn't matter to us. It's about providing value to this community and brands being able to see profit because of it. And I think that's the key. Both sides have to work. And if we can show brands that, hey, when you talk to this community, you make money, and then obviously the community gets spoken to in a way that's specific for them and actually helps them, then it feels like everybody wins in that mechanic.
Yeah, no, it's great. I know it was cool when we spoke with the team at the GOAT yesterday to launch it internally. There was just a lot of positive feedback and excitement to get involved with it as well, which was lovely to see.
Oh, I'm getting messages. I've had so many people call me and be like, let me talk about Purple Goat. Is there a potential role for me there? Is it? can just give us a sec, guys. So
likewise with the Disability Horizons team, we've got Liz and Chris who have been in the trenches with me on our magazine and doing some smaller scale agency work, and our volunteers as well. They're just excited that we're going to that next level. So yeah, it's a lot of positivity all around, Arron.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, I'm looking forward to meeting both of them properly, and certainly, bringing them on board. I'm super excited by it. Question from Tyler Grant as well. Will the focus be on those with physical disabilities, or is there scope to include those with neurodiversities as well?
Yep, neurodiversity is absolutely one of the broader segments that we would want to cover, and that would include from dyslexia to autism to a lot of different, Down syndrome, anything under that neurodiversity segment. We 100% want to get them in front of brands and working with brands as well.
A question I know we've already answered, but maybe if you can again for Suhit Armin, why goat purple?
So the colour attributed to the spending power of disabled people is purple, very much like the pink pound is synonymous with the gay community. So the purple is for disabled people, and it's 250 billion in the UK, just a little wedge of cash, 250 billion, and $8 trillion globally. So that's why it's purple.
And the goat, obviously.
Yeah. Greatest of all time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure everyone is going to hear a lot more from both of us about Goat Purple. We are up and live. If anyone would like to start speaking to Martyn and the team, please do get in touch. info@purplegoatagency.com. If you're a Goat Agency client, please speak to your account manager. The whole business is fully aware of this and behind this. And they can put you straight in touch with Martyn and the team in order to start trying to help with this. I think this is really, really exciting as an entrepreneur. I'm really excited as somebody who's trying to help brands every day. I think it's really exciting for them, and they're going to see a lot of opportunity. And as someone who's getting to know this community better and better through you, I can really see some positive impact that can come out of this for everybody. So, really exciting. It's an absolute pleasure from our side to be partnering with you on it. And yeah, have you got any final words for everyone, Martyn?
Echoing what you're saying, just very exciting times, lots of good work to be done for everyone involved. And I think the last point I'd make is there's no such thing as a stupid question. I know people get quite caught up about language and not wanting to offend, and like I can't lift my arm up very far to shake hands, and there's always this awkward, like, do we shake, do we not? And like in the end, it's better just to ask. So if you've got any questions about appropriate or inappropriate wording and stuff like that, just ask me, because I'd rather get beyond that slightly irrelevant stuff and actually get on in terms of what we can do in a bigger way.
I think it's a really good point, and a great way to end. I think the two things that I want to finish on would be valuable, not vulnerable, which I think is absolutely critical, that we change the perception of this consumer group, which is all they are. It's a consumer group like any other, and nothing about us without us. And that, it's odd for me to say, and I'm not saying it about me. I'm saying it about people that are in this specific community. And Martyn is obviously in a part of this community, and you should be listening to people like Martyn and other people that actually understand this. So really, really exciting for us. Look forward to speaking to you all about it more. If you do have any questions, obviously go to anyone at the Goat Agency or to Martyn directly. But really excited to get this going.
Yeah, I will look forward eventually to have content going on at Purple Goat channels. But for the minute, if people want to follow me on social, we've got the Daily Sib, where I'm interviewing lots of influencers in the community. So if people want to learn and get up to speed a bit around what's going on, that's another good way to do it. And I've got my travel book on Amazon. So I'm just going to plug everything now, Arron. But yeah, it's a good way for people to get to know me and the community through the book and through the blogs as well.
Absolutely, couldn't recommend following Martyn enough on every platform. You'll be seeing a lot more of him on the main Goat Agency channels as well as time goes on, and obviously the Purple Goat channel as that gets developed. Martyn, really appreciate your time. Thank you to everyone for watching. Onwards with Purple Goat.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Arron. Take care, everyone.
See you later, guys. Take care, everyone.